Hi, I'm Annie Sullivan and you had probably heard about me from The Miracle Worker and as Helen Keller's teacher. I did a lot of extraordinary things in my lifetime by teaching Helen Keller with finger spelling in ASL, how to communicate and more. Today I'm going to read amazing story about my life. Born, April 14, 1866, Feeding Hills, Agoim, MA. Died, October 20, 1936, age 70 years, Forest Hills, New York, NY. Cause of death, coronary thrombosis. Spouse, John Albert Macy, 1905 to 1932. Parents, Alice Closey Sullivan, Thomas Sullivan. Siblings, Ellen Sullivan, James Sullivan, Mary Sullivan. Education, Perkins School for the Blind, 1880 to 1886. Childhood. On April 14, 1866, Annie Sullivan was born in Feeding Hills, Agoim, Massachusetts, United States. The name on her baptismal certificate was Joanna Mansfield Sullivan, but she was called Ann or Annie from birth. She was the eldest child of Thomas and Alice Closey Sullivan, who had emigrated from Ireland to the United States during the Great Famine. When she was 5 years old, Sullivan contracted the bacterial eye disease trachoma, which caused many painful infections and over time made her nearly blind. When she was 8, her mother died from tuberculosis, and her father abandoned the children 2 years later for fear that he could not raise them on his own. She and her younger brother, James, Jimmy, were sent to the rundown and overcrowded almshouse in Tewksbury, Massachusetts, today part of Tewksbury Hospital, and their younger sister, Mary, was left to an aunt. Jimmy had a weak hip condition and then died from tuberculosis 4 months into their stay. Anne remained at Tewksbury after his death and endured 2 unsuccessful eye operations. In 1875, as a result of reports of cruelty to inmates at Tewksbury, including sexually perverted practices and cannibalism, the Massachusetts Board of State Charities launched an investigation into the institution. The investigation was led by Franklin Benjamin Sanborn, then chairman of the board, and Samuel Gridley Howe, founder of the Perkins School for the Blind in Boston. In February 1877, Sullivan was sent to the Sœurs de la Charité Hospital in Lowell, Massachusetts, where she had another unsuccessful operation. While there, she helped the nuns in the wards and went on errands in the community until July of that year, when she was sent to the city infirmary, where she had one more unsuccessful operation. She was then transferred back to Tewksbury under duress. 5. Instead of returning to the facility for predominantly ill and insane patients, she was housed with single mothers and unmarried pregnant women. Education. On October 7, 1880, Sullivan began her studies at the Perkins School. Although her first years at Perkins were humiliating because of her rough manners, she managed to connect with a few teachers and made progress with her learning. While at Perkins, Sullivan befriended Laura Bridgman, a graduate of Perkins and the first blind and deaf person to have been educated there. Sullivan learned the manual alphabet from Laura. During her time there, she had a series of eye operations that significantly improved her vision. In June 1886, graduating at age 20 as the valedictorian of her class, Sullivan stated, "Fellow graduates, duty bids us go forth into active life. Let us go cheerfully, hopefully, and earnestly, and set ourselves to find our especial part. When we have found it, willingly and faithfully perform it, for every obstacle we overcome, every success we achieve tends to bring man closer to God and make life more as he would have it." Career. The summer after Sullivan had graduated, the director of Perkins School for the Blind, Michael Ananias, was contacted by Arthur Keller, Helen Keller's father, who was in search of a teacher for his 7-year-old blind and deaf daughter. Ananias immediately recommended Sullivan for this position and she began her work on March 3, 1887, at the Kellers' home located in Alabama. As soon as she arrived, she argued with Helen's parents about the Civil War and over the fact that they had owned slaves. However, she also quickly connected with Helen. It was the beginning of a 49-year relationship. Sullivan evolved from teacher to governess and finally to companion and friend. Sullivan's curriculum involved a strict schedule, with constant introduction of new vocabulary. However, she quickly changed her teaching method after seeing it did not suit Keller. Instead, she began to teach her vocabulary based on her own interests, by spelling each word out into Keller's palm. Within 6 months this method proved to be working, since Keller had learned 575 words, some multiplication tables and the Braille system. Sullivan strongly encouraged Helen's parents to send her to the Perkins School, where she could have an appropriate education. Once they had agreed, Sullivan took Keller to Boston in 1888 and stayed with her there. Sullivan continued to teach her bright protégé, who soon became famous for her remarkable progress. With the help of the school's director, Annie, Keller became a public symbol for the school, helping to increase its funding and donations and making it the most famous and sought-after school for the blind in the country. However, an accusation of plagiarism against Keller greatly upset Sullivan. She left and never returned, but did remain influential to the school. Sullivan also remained a close companion to Keller and continued to assist in her education, which ultimately included a degree from Radcliffe College, now part of Harvard University. In 1916, Helen Keller and Annie Sullivan went on a lecture tour under the auspices of the YWCA that brought them to the stage at the Mabel Tainter Memorial Building in Menominee, Wisconsin, on January 22, 1916. During the hour-long presentation, Sullivan, identified as Mrs. Macy in the newspaper account, described her work with Keller, followed by Keller's talk on happiness, personal life. On May 3, 1905, Sullivan married Harvard University instructor and literary critic John Albert Macy, 1877–1932, who had helped Keller with her publications. When she married, Sullivan was already living with Keller as her personal teacher, so Macy moved into the household of both women. However, within a few years, the marriage began to disintegrate. By 1914, they separated, though Macy is listed as living as a lodger with them in the 1920 U.S. Census. As the years progressed after their separation, Macy appears to have faded from her life, and the two never officially divorced. Macy died in 1932 of a heart attack. Sullivan never remarried. In 1932, Keller and Sullivan were each awarded honorary fellowships from the Educational Institute of Scotland. They were also awarded honorary degrees from Temple University. In 1955, Keller was awarded an honorary degree from Harvard University, and in 1956, the director's cottage at the Perkins School was named the Keller-Macy Cottage. Sullivan had been seriously visually impaired for almost all of her life, but by 1901, after having a stroke at age 35, she became completely blind. On October 15, 1936, she had a coronary thrombosis, fell into a coma, and died 5 days later at the age of 70 in the Forest Hills neighborhood of Queens, New York, with Keller holding her hand. Keller described Sullivan as being very agitated during her last month of life, but during the last week, she was said to return to her normal generous self. Sullivan was cremated and her ashes interred in a memorial at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. She was the first woman to be recognized for her achievements in this way. When Keller died in 1968, she was cremated as well and her ashes were interred alongside those of Sullivan. I hope you like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to Imagination is Magic's YouTube channel. Comment below if you like this video and follow Imagination is Magic on YouTube. Please send positive feedback to her videos on YouTube channel. Also, I'm an advocate for people with disabilities too, including people who are blind or hearing loss and including LGBTQ and more. This afternoon I met Imagination is Magic and she's a really good person and she an advocate for people with disabilities and wants people with disabilities to be included with other people around the world and be happy. Also, I heard Imagination is Magic is an advocate for LGBTQ, and she's a great YouTuber as well. Helen Keller, and I've loved watching her videos especially for people with disabilities. Imagination is Magic is a truly inspirational and amazing person on earth and she is a miracle. She is loved just like everyone else around the world. We deserve to have a better world with lots of love, hope and happiness. People with disabilities are all the same just like everyone else. We are loved and we are special and amazing people. We are blessed and amazing human beings. Imagination is magic, and I can see the beauty of the light, your heart and soul. Everybody has talents, strengths and challenges. Everybody has different circumstances. Everybody is different in their own way. We are loved. Everybody is loved. Love is freedom and equality. Love is the powerful thing on earth. We are treated with the same respect and love and compassion. We need to treat the way we wanted to treated. Love is love. This is Annie Sullivan signing off. Bye.